I'm George Artley. I'm a retired Command Sergeant Major, and I was stationed in Albuquerque, New Mexico in 1968 when a B-52 crashed in Thule Greenland. I was on an emergency team, team number 3. We responded from Albuquerque and went to Thule Greenland to police the remains up. And from there on, it was just basic cleanup.
So what exactly happened? How did the accident happen?
Well, the accident happened when a B-52 was flying over Thule Greenland, and one of the members of the crew took his coat off and put it in the next to a heater, and it heated up and it caught the coat on fire, so it started smoking. And what happened then is they couldn't find the fire. All they seen was smoke and everything, so they panicked, and the commander ordered the ship to be ditched. So they jettisoned all the people, and the plane just came down and crashed.
So there were 6 people on board,
Yeah.
and 5 of them made it out, and 1 of them didn't, correct?
Right. One of them, there were 6 ejection seats, and there was 5 people. There's 5 ejection seats, and there was 6 people. One of them had to go out through where one of the ejection seats was, and he didn't make it because the plane was still flying at around I think it was 340, 360 miles an hour. And of course, you can't manually eject going at that speed because it just brings you back into the plane. And that's what happened with one of them. He came back and hit the plane, mangled him up. So
there were 4 nuclear devices on board, correct?
yes.
And then what happened with them?
They eventually detonated with HE, and the accident site was scattered 5 miles, square miles.
Right.
So.
And so they called you up in November, and how cold was it?
It was about 30 below. Somebody told us when we was getting ready to leave Albuquerque, it was like 70 degrees in Albuquerque, and we left there. On the way up, they told us it was 60 below in Thule Greenland, and we all panicked. But we finally got there and got out and got acclimatized. They had Eskimos up there, and the Eskimos built us igloos out of the ice, and that was there for emergency shelter in case a phase 3 storm came in. And on a phase 3 storm, it's just, if you're in the open, you just lay down and they'll find your body in the springtime, I guess. But they built us igloos out of snow, and we get in the igloos, and it was quite an experience because I really didn't realize that the igloos were made out of ice and everything, but once you got in there, it was warm as toast. Your body heat, and there was 2 of us in the igloo, so your body heat actually kept the place nice and warm, but still 30 below.
Now, what was your MOS?
I was a 436 nuclear weapons instructor.
And then you were on, what was the name of the incident response team that you were on?
Oh, DASA-NET. DASA stands for Defense Atomic Support Agency. nuclear emergency team. There was 4 teams. There was 2 teams at a time. One was on active standby, the other was on inactive standby, and then the other 2 were just training mode. And we were in the training mode when that happened, and then they activated us, and we flew up there and did our thing.
And it was dark that time of year, right?
Yeah, yeah. When we landed there, it was a strange, eerie, because at 30 below zero, you can't see. It was, I mean, besides it was dark, but the thickness of the air was so bad that the Coleman lanterns that we had, you could hold it right off the ground and you couldn't see the ground. That's how bad it was. It was just so cold. The cold weather was so dense, and it made it hard to breathe and everything.
What did your team have to do to clean up that nuclear accident site?
Well, first we had to find the box. Okay. Now everybody, we were looking for a black box. Well, if you can imagine, the B-52 was on fire, of course, and when it crashed, everything was burned up. But you know, everything turned black. But the black box really wasn't black, but it was when we found it. But that's what we were looking for, because that had all the transmissions from the pilot and all that on it. It was like, you know, well, it's just the black box. And they could trace back what went wrong and everything else by using that.
What did you do to help clean up the site?
Well, first we got up there. When the first thing we did was they surveyed the site, and we were going to do. We had a colonel that was in charge of us, who was shouldn't have been, but anyway, he was, and he had a compass with him, and we were standing around this cardboard, this plywood shack that they built for us, and we were standing around there, and they said, okay, let's go out and we'll survey the area. So this colonel come out with the compass, and he's looking at the compass, and I'm standing there next to him, and I said, what's the matter? He says, well, the compass isn't working. I said, what do you mean it's not working? He said, well, look, it's going all kinds of directions. So I laughed, and I said, well, you see over that area right there? I said, about 300 yards over there is the magnetic North Pole. That's why it's not working. You know, you're too close to the magnetic North Pole. It's pulling all your things for the magnetic compass. So they finally put that away. And we just went out and walked off.
Now, who was a part of this incident response team?
Well, they were all from team number 3, the DASANET, which stood for Defense Atomic Support Agency Nuclear Emergency Team. And we were team number 3. There was 4 of us, or 4 teams, and the first 2 was on standby, and my team was one of the ones that was on standby. And when it crashed, the first team left. They went up there and they surveyed it, and they said there's nothing they could do. It was just too much for them. So we got pulled and we flew up to help them out. And what happened when we got there it wasn't any different. I mean, Christ, there was nothing we could do. You know, the accident site was 5 square miles, if you can imagine that, on the ice pack. And so we just had to form as skirmishers and just walk through the field and pick up parts. and we looked for certain parts of the bombs that we had to get, because it was classified, of course, and we had to make sure that that was secured before anybody else got in there. And after that, and then they started looking for what they called the black box, which was the information that the pilot gets, and everything. They found everything that they needed to, and that was about it.
Did the scientists have to change their instrumentation because of the temperature?
Yeah, when the people, when we had scientists from Sandia Labs, okay, they came up there, and it was on an expedition for them, because they've never been into area 30 below zero, and they had regular instruments and what have you. So when they brought these instruments up, and they found out that the instruments weren't working because it was too cold. So they had to improvise, and actually they had to make up different procedures so that they could use instruments or more effectively than what they, not as effective as they could, but the best that they could. And we never did get any grid coordinates or anything like that, because it was impossible. It was too close to the magnetic North Pole, and it was just 30 below zero.
How long did y'all stay up there?
I stayed up there 39 days on the ice pack. Okay, the team. I was part of the first team. Well, Team 3 we had 4 teams. Team 3 was just sent up there, and we were there for 39 days, I think it was. And we were there just long enough to get acclimatized, I guess, and help find some of this stuff. And then they pulled us out and put another team in, because at 30 below zero, it was hard breathing. It's hard to explain to anybody if they haven't been in it, but you go into 30 degrees below zero, and the whole thing, the whole idea of breathing changes. I mean, it's heavy. You can't just breathe normal, and it would take your breath away. And you'd look out over the field there, and you'd see like a fog bank. Well, you never wanted to go into the fog bank because it wasn't fog, okay? It was colder air. And when you got into that, that's it. You couldn't breathe in there. And we had these Air Force Parkers, and we had them down to where you're looking out through like that. You had to hit that all the time to keep your breath from freezing on it. And it was just, it was something else.
How many people were on your nuclear emergency team?
Well, I had 18 on the team. That included a lawyer and a physicist. Now, they didn't deploy with us. They stayed in the hangar. But the physicist, he came out a couple of times just to check instruments and what have you, because the instruments we had, we never used them at 30 and 40 below zero. So we had no idea what the hell was going on. So we had to test them first. And while we were there testing, people from Sandia Labs was right there with us, and they were the technicians. They did different things to their equipment to modify them so that we could use them. And because of that, they had new instruments developed by the Sandia Labs while we were working.
What was going through your mind that whole time? Were you nervous? Were you scared?
No, well, I wasn't scared. I wasn't nervous. I mean, hell, the bombs already blew up. You know, I mean, there's 5 square miles of blackened ice. You know, and we had I can't think of his title, but he was a professor, and he was an iceologist. You know, and he kept saying, "You don't have to worry about the ice. The ice is strong." You know, and we had road graders and what have you. And I'm standing next to a 30-ton road grader, you know what I'm saying? How thick is that ice, you know? I mean, because it's all black from where it was burned and what have you. And he said, the scientist says, "Oh, you don't have to worry about it unless the ice is in a circle. The cracks are in a circle." I said, "Oh, I said, "We're standing on a circle, you know." So, but didn't work. I mean, we were there. We didn't fall through. But we had to drill through the ice and take water samples. And that was, to me, it was funny because we drill a hole in the ice, put this cup down into the water, put it down, you know, and then bring it back up, and by the time we get it back up, it's frozen. You know, what the hell good is that, you know? Now we got to take it back to the behind you in the rear and thaw it out so you can test it, you know. So it's something that I would, I'm glad I was there, really. Because I know if somebody told me what it was like and what have you, I wouldn't have believed them. It's just, it's like, you know how a Coleman lantern is, how bright they are? You take this Coleman lantern and you sit it down on the ground and you couldn't see it. I mean, it's just gone. So, and you pick it up and what have you, and it didn't shine very much at all. Not at that temperature, at least.
Did it make you appreciate upstate New York winters?
Oh, yeah. Well, you know, what's so funny about it was when we left here in New York State, it was like 70 degrees, I guess. You know, it should have been colder, but it wasn't for some reason. And then we landed in Massachusetts. We swapped out some of our clothing and then went on into Thule Greenland. And by the time I was on a KC-135, and by the time I got from the back of the plane to the door, there was ice on the floor already. And it's just, whew, it's unbelievable. When we were done doing all of what we had to do and everything, to return, we all had to go through what they call a hotline. And what they do is you go through this hotline and you take your outer clothes off and put it in a bundle, and then you put new clothes on, and then they test it for radiation and everything, and then they test you for radiation, and then from there you were clear to come back. And while you're standing there, I was standing there with a couple of other guys, and this one guy come up and he says, come on over here. He says, I'll clear you. I said, well, we got to wait and go that way first. Oh, no, I'll clear you. I said, we got to go that way first because we had to be cleared by the radiation people. Radiation? And I said, yeah, what the hell you think we're doing up here? Playing marbles? You know? And he says, gone. So after we got, got cleared, then we could, finally go through the hotline. Most of the people were there had no idea. The only people that knew what the hell was going on was the people from DASA-NET. That's Defense Atomic Support Agency Nuclear Emergency Team. We knew what was going on. We knew everything about it, And then we had, they had a colonel. They put a colonel in charge of us, okay, an Air Force colonel, and we were getting briefed by him, and he was telling us about all this and that, and we were looking. He said we're looking for a black box, and which we were, but he says I can't tell you what the black box is because it's classified. And I said, raised my hand. I said, excuse me. I says, who the hell do you think you are? He looked and he says, what are you talking about? I says, we're all nuclear emergency team instructors. So we know more about these bombs than you ever even thought of. And you're telling me you can't tell us about the black box? What is the black box? He says, well, I can't tell you, but it's the size of a bread box. I said, okay, what the hell's a bread box? And then we went on and on and on. Finally, they gave up and said, okay, we'll tell you what the black box is. Thank you. We know what the black box is. I said, we're nuclear weapons instructors. We put these goddamn things together, okay? Now, let's get on with the real stuff, and, so they left us alone. But it was unbelievable. There for a while, you think they're the only ones that knew anything. And they did send people up from, Sandia Labs. And they were scientists. And of course they knew what was going on and everything. And it was simple for us to figure out what happened and everything. Really was. After we got through with all the crap that they were throwing at us. We didn't recover any of the weapons. I mean, we recovered parts of them, okay? But we recovered enough of the HE. And to understand it, you got to understand that when they put together a nuclear weapon, the HE and everything that they put together for this weapon is got serial numbers, okay? Everything that's on that weapon is serial numbered, and it's registered. So, we found pieces of HE, okay, and that's all it was. But we knew, because of the history of it and what have you, what weapon it was and the whole 9 yards. We knew we found all 4 weapons. Okay. So we were positive. We had 4 pieces of a weapon, okay? And of course, they made a big deal out of that, saying, oh, you can't tell what it was and this and that. Oh, for Christ's sake, But they had enough parts to make up for 4 of them. So.
Good.
All right. Anything else? No. Well, we thank you for sharing.
I don't think so.
No.